He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Thanks for the idea, Grace. You're fired." Everyone in the meeting room laughed, like I was some clueless intern, but what they didn't know was that I already owned everything he just stole. I had planned this betrayal 6 months ago, and today, his downfall had officially begun. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or taken for granted, subscribe, like, and share this story, because what happens next will hit deep. I wasn't always the quiet girl in the corner of the office. A year ago, I was a broke coder. Eating dollar ramen, building a startup at night while working 9 to 5 under a man named Jason, a sleek-talking boss who wore fake charm like a cheap suit. He smiled at my ambition, until he realized it might outshine his own. "Grace, you're smart. You just need direction," he'd say, pretending to mentor me while secretly spying on my screen. I was building a revolutionary productivity AI. Something real. Something mine, until one Monday morning, the company held a special product reveal. Jason walked on stage, smiled wide, and presented my entire idea. Word for word. Slide for slide. The logo was different, but the algorithm, the interface, it was all mine, and he didn't even flinch when he ended with, "Proudly built by our internal team. Led by yours truly." I sat frozen in my chair, heartbeat in my ears, every teammate looking at me with either pity or blank silence, but I didn't panic, because this was exactly what I wanted him to do. I had left one hidden line of code. A digital fingerprint in the back end that legally linked the core of the product to my private intellectual property, and tonight, while Jason celebrated his success over champagne, I quietly uploaded a public patent claim to the federal IP database. What he stole wasn't just my code. He walked straight into a trap I'd been building for months, and by the time he'd find out, everything he owned would legally belong to me. That night, while the office buzzed with fake congratulations and clueless applause, I stayed late, not to cry, but to watch. From the shadows of my cubicle, I saw Jason toasting investors, gloating about the product like he birthed it himself. "You've really outdone yourself," one of the VCs said, handing him a check I wasn't supposed to see. Jason smirked. "I told you we had talent. Grace? Just a junior developer. She wouldn't even understand half this stuff." I clenched my fists, but I didn't move. I just smiled, because what Jason didn't know was that the domain he'd used to launch the product was quietly leased through a shell company I'd set up 6 months earlier. His entire launch, backend, and interface were legally entangled in contracts he never read. He hadn't just stolen my idea, he had launched it on property I secretly owned, and I had the receipts. The next morning, I filed an injunction with my lawyer, Ben, a soft-spoken genius who also happened to be my secret co-founder. We'd been building the real version of the software quietly in the background, with all the original documentation, timestamps, and beta testers to prove it. Meanwhile, Jason was too busy enjoying his 48 hours of fake fame. The news picked it up. Young tech star launches revolutionary AI productivity tool. Photos of him flooded LinkedIn. My inbox, meanwhile, was exploding, with messages from former coworkers saying things like, "I knew it was your idea, Grace. Are you okay? He's taking all the credit. Do something." I didn't reply. Not yet, because I knew exactly where Jason would be that night, accepting an award at the regional tech conference downtown, bragging in front of cameras, press, and our entire industry. That's when I made my move. I walked in quietly, dressed sharp, confident, and unnoticed, until the end of his speech. He was thanking the team when the giant screen behind him suddenly glitched, then my voice played. On the speakers, "I built this software in silence. You stole it in arrogance. And now, I'm taking it back." Gasps echoed through the room as my patent documents, timestamps, and leaked chat screenshots flashed across the screen, proving the idea had always been mine. Jason froze. Turned pale. Reached for the mic like he could still explain something, but the audience had already turned, and the investors, they were standing up, walking out, because they had just realized they'd backed the wrong person. Security escorted Jason off stage. Within minutes. He tried to act calm. "It's just a misunderstanding," he mumbled, but his voice cracked with every word. I stood there, arms crossed, watching him spiral in front of the same crowd that had cheered for him an hour ago. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to see my silence was louder than anything he could say. One by one, reporters started swarming me. "Grace, is this true? Do you have proof the code was yours?" I nodded and pulled out a flash drive. My documentation is dated, signed, and verified. The prototype? Registered 6 months before Jason's launch. The trademarks? All under my name. The servers? Owned by my LLC. He didn't just steal an idea, he launched it using my infrastructure. The moment went viral overnight. By morning, the video had 8.3 million views, hashtags like hashtag Justice for Grace and hashtag Startup Thief were trending, and LinkedIn was a war zone. People from our office started jumping ship. Interns. Developers. Even the senior engineer who once called me naive sent me a message, Grace. I messed up. I knew he wasn't capable of building that thing alone. But I wasn't interested in apologies. I was too busy buying out the company. Jason had unknowingly signed 20% equity of the fake launch company to a holding firm I controlled. And once his investors pulled out, the company's value tanked. With my name now viral, VCs were flooding me with offers to back my real version of the product. Within 72 hours, I had enough funding to buy controlling interest in the very company. He built off my stolen idea. Jason tried to fight it, he even hired lawyers, but every move he made, I'd already predicted. I wasn't just one step ahead, I had built the entire board he was trying to play on. When the ownership transfer completed, I walked into our old office. He was sitting there, slumped at my former desk, looking lost. I placed a new nameplate. Down, CEO, Grace Martin, you can clear your things, I said without emotion. Oh, and check your contract. You signed a full rights waiver to the codebase. You don't own a single line of it. His face dropped. He opened his mouth, then closed it. There was nothing left to say. As he walked past me in silence, I couldn't help but whisper, you should have just said thank you. But I wasn't done yet, because now that I had the company, I had one more surprise that would completely destroy his reputation, for good. I called an all-hands meeting for the entire company, remote staff included. Everyone was nervous. Some hadn't even heard the full story. Others still believed Jason was the brain behind the software. That was about to change. I walked into the glass-walled conference room, this time not as that quiet girl in engineering, but as their new CEO. I know there's been a lot of confusion, I began, locking eyes with the team. So let's clear it up. I tapped a key, and the projector lit up. A folder titled, The Truth About Project Atlas opened. Inside were chat logs, timestamped commits, voice notes of Jason coaching interns to keep Grace busy while we polish her code, and the final piece, a recorded call between Jason and a VC, where he said, she's just a girl with a laptop. We'll launch it first, and she won't have the guts to fight back. Silenced. I looked around and saw jaws tightening, eyes shifting. One intern had tears in her eyes. Then I said, you've been working hard under a lie. But that ends now. Every one of you who stays, gets a fresh contract, stock options, and full transparency. No more stolen credit. No more silent effort swept under someone else's ego. That was the moment everything flipped. Applause started. Slowly. Then louder. A developer who'd barely spoken to me before stood up and said, Grace? I'm in. Just tell me what you need. Within hours, 92% of the team signed with me, but while I was rebuilding the company from the ground up, Jason was falling apart in public. Screenshots of his DMs leaked. Investors sued him for misrepresentation. LinkedIn suspended his account. After too many reports of fraud. His name, once polished and praised, was now smeared across every tech blog as the CEO who stole a startup and lost everything. And then came the final blow. 2 weeks later, I was invited to speak at a global innovation summit, the same one Jason had applied to before I got fired. I walked onto the stage, 10,000 people watching, and opened with this. They said I was just a background coder. Too quiet to lead. Too soft to win. But it turns out, being underestimated is the most powerful weapon you can have, if you know how to use it. The crowd stood up. Full standing ovation, and in the front row, in a faded suit and bad posture, sat Jason, just another guest. Now. Just another lesson in what happens when you mistake silence for weakness. But the story wasn't just about him anymore, because behind me, a new slide appeared, Atlas 2.0, now hiring, built by underdogs, led by the one they tried to erase. 6 months later, the company I built from ashes was now soaring. We had offices in 3 cities, a product with over 1 million active users, and a waiting list of developers dying to join our team. Investors who once ignored my emails were now sending gift baskets. Magazines called me the girl who outsmarted Silicon Valley. But none of that mattered as much as what happened on one very personal afternoon that I got an email from my old college professor. The same one who once told me, "You're smart, Grace, but maybe focus on supporting roles, leaders need charisma." His email: "Grace, would you be open to coming in as a guest lecturer to inspire the next batch of students?" I replied with one line, "Only if they're ready to hear what real leadership looks like." The next day, I visited the old campus. Students crowded the auditorium, whispering and pointing when I walked in. I told them everything: the betrayal, the silence, the trap I set, and the quiet power of not needing applause to do something extraordinary. But outside, in the parking lot, I saw a familiar face. Jason. He looked older, worn out. He walked toward me, hands in his pockets, no smug grin left. "I just came to say sorry," he said quietly. "I lost everything." I looked him in the eyes. For a moment, I saw the man who once fired me like trash. Who once said, "Thanks for the idea, Grace. You're fired." Now he was standing in front of me, unemployed, humiliated, and forgotten by the very world he tried to conquer using my wings. I smiled, not in revenge, but in peace. "I forgive you," I said. "But I'll never forget what you taught me." He blinked. "What's that?" "That the best revenge," I whispered, "is building something so strong, they can never steal it again." He watched me walk away. This time, I wasn't the girl left behind. I was the one leading the way, and as I got in my car, a notification popped up: Atlas 2.0 just hit $100 million valuation. I put my phone down, looked up at the sky, and exhaled. Not because I'd won, but because I'd done it my way, from betrayal to boardroom. From silence to legacy, and all without lowering myself to his level. They tried to erase me, now the world couldn't stop writing about me.